Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Library Trustees, meeting of March 11th, 2025. Time I have is 6:02. I'll invite Jinder to call the roll.
All right, Trustee Cortez, Trustee Kyle, Trustee Lee, Trustee Vedot,
Here.
Chair Ando.
Here. I'll invite Jinder to explain how the public can participate in this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Chair Ando. This meeting will be held in person and is being recorded and streamed live to Zoom at the link on the agenda. You may participate in person to provide public comment. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. You may also submit your comments by email by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. We are offering closed captioning for this evening's meeting on Zoom. Select the live transcript button on Zoom to enable this feature.
Jinder. The next item is the minutes and the approval of the regular meeting of January 14th, 2025. I'll invite questions and from trustees to the staff. Hearing no questions, I'll open for public comment in person attendees. And I'll remind anyone who's attending to that they will have 2 minutes for public comment. Jinder, is there anyone available? There's no one here in the room from public.
No one is available online. We're only doing in person.
God, I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, no problem.
All right, so I'll close the public comment. And let's see, are there any comments from the committee to the staff? If not, I'll request a motion.
I'll move to, well, I guess I shouldn't since I wasn't here. Although I can make the motion. I'll move to approve the minutes from January 14th, 2025.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Jinder, please call the roll.
Trustee Cortez, Trustee Kyle.
Yes.
Trustee Lee,
Yes.
Trustee Vedot,
I'll abstain.
Chair Ando.
Yes. Aye. All right. Sounds like that's done. The next item is open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the library board at this time on that not on the agenda that are within its jurisdiction. Comments can be no longer than 2 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Again, there's no one here in the boardroom, so.
Chair Ando, what I did just want to note that we have changed the open time for public expression from 3 to 2 minutes just to align with what city council does. So that's kind of a move that's, I don't know if anyone would notice, but for folks that have been chair, just wanted to call that out. That was done intentionally across all boards and commissions to just all be in alignment.
We go through the meetings.
It's all public comment.
Maybe one day.
Each mentioned something controversial.
Jinder, since there is no one from the public at the table tonight, I think I can close the open time for public expression. The next item is special presentations, of which we do not have any tonight. And if that's correct, I will move on to other agenda items. Number 3, the introduction of library policy review, the library policy review process.
Sure. So we wanted to provide a quick overview on our process to review all of our public facing policies that will that really guide our work at the library. And the overall goal is just to make sure that they remain relevant, that they're aligned with what we envision our service to the community looking like. And really to provide some clear guidance for staff when they're engaging with the public, or for example, one of the policies is the unattended children policy that we're looking at. But make sure that they're clear on how to handle those interactions in the public. And make sure that our patrons understand and it's transparent what we expect of their behavior at the library. So the review, pretty much, we broke it down into 3 stages. Started in November, we invited all staff, regular, permanent hire, part-time, and our contingent hire, our subs, to really take a look at all of our policies, which were consolidated on a spreadsheet so that we can track kind of changes that where we had the original, the current policy, our draft policy, and we included examples from other libraries so that they can kind of review them and see things that are working for or how other systems are using it. But one of our goals of including staff is we have a lot of we share a lot of our temporary staff with other libraries throughout Marin. And I think it was a great opportunity for them to really bring back a lot of information on what's working at all these other libraries. Consolidate that on in one document so that we can review it. The next phase after staff review is really to look at the updates, start reworking the policies, including some updated language, kicking it back to our supervisors once we update it, sending it to our city attorney so that they can provide legal and structural assessment as necessary. And then really finalize something that'll work for us based on each kind of policy. And then the third is our board review. So once as policies are reviewed and updated, we'll bring them to this board to kind of review and comment. And then the implementation phase is really bringing it back to staff, making sure that any changes staff are trained on, and that we're all on the same page.
One thing I just wanted to add onto what Daniel's saying is last week we had our library 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, we had an all-staff retreat. And we were kind of looking at, a lot of it was around our organizational culture and trust building and but one of the big things we looked at was where can we improve as an organization? What do staff need to really deliver the best service to the community and to feel supported in their work? And the number one thing that came up was consistent, clear policies and procedures and training on those. So policies is one thing, and then there's procedures as well. And you know, a lot of there's so much in the back end of how the library operates. So that's kind of really just emphasizes the importance of what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be bringing to the board. Some of them are pretty straightforward, and then some of them are definitely more complex.
And staff really appreciate the collaborative nature of doing this. And it really informs how we review them and update them.
More buy-in.
Please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I appreciate having the opportunity to review and comment on a board level. I was just gonna ask, when do you expect to bring the?
So we're bringing them, I think the first kind of set of policies we're bringing, it's not April, but maybe May.
Cool.
I'd have to go back to the work plan and see.
And I think the plan, if I remember correctly, was to bring some of the lower hanging fruit first.
Like, for example, that's true, like some of there's a critical one that I was working on today, the unattended child policy is one that's critical to all of our sites. And that's the one that you'll probably see first. Our guide for library use is probably one that I'm waiting a little bit till we're back in the Carnegie in a new space. So I think that's going to inform some of the decisions on how we update that.
It's also probably gonna be the most likely to require like city attorney review,
yeah.
and it's the one we use the most.
The most.
Um,
It's a tough one.
it is,
Yeah.
but it's so critical,
Mhm.
it's so critical.
I was just curious, when was the last time you guys looked at it or really updated the policy?
Good question. I think it varies.
We're 2018, and that was one of the more recent.
I know, just because I was looking at it all day today, the unattended child one, I think it was 2018.
Okay.
And another one that will come is our collection development policy, and that's actually being driven by state law. There was a new state law passed that requires libraries to have a collection development policy. And we have one, but there's specific language that they need to see in it, so we'll need to add that to ours. That needs to be done by the end of the year.
End of the year.
Mhm.
Since we already have one, it's less of a lift. It's the one we have is very aligned with what the state library is looking for. They just want some very specific language in there. So.
Comments from board members? I'm thinking.
It's something that, the policy is, now discussed with the staff and the director, department and the city attorney and everybody, but is it any like a input could be also like what staff thinks that veterans needing?
So that's the phase we're in right now.
Yeah.
So all the policies were looked at by all staff,
Yes,
and we collected all their feedback and their input on language.
yeah.
And we're taking that and including that in our rewrite.
Mhm.
And then from there, it'll go to, as necessary, to our city attorney, and then ultimately here.
And for veterans, the other one. I think the library users who would go there often, right? You need to hear them, what they think would really improve the policy.
Right, and I think that's what I was kind of getting at when getting back in our space and seeing how it dictates our library use policy.
Yeah. That'd be great. Okay.
Other comments? I'll give people a second. I looked at one of the policies and I do remember now sending you guys a quick email on one about, suspensions, right? And just saying that, the way the policy is currently written, it has to be, there has to be a mailing or a phone number for the person. And people might not have that or available to them. And the appeal must be in a letter, not an email or other type of communications. So I suppose for legal reasons, the guidelines must be written that way, which is something to consider. And it's not just.
It was it was a good question, and the thinking of 2018 may not be the thinking of 2025. So that appeals process is, I'm sure, one that the city attorney will weigh in on. We are very, and I believe they can only appeal a permanent suspension. I think that's how it's written. But that's not something we take lightly or would enter into lightly. So, I think that there is a certain burden to be placed on someone. A reasonable burden to pursue an appeal, but I think that is something we'll look at,
Yeah, I was just thinking of people, particularly maybe homeless people who, wanted to appeal, but didn't have the specific resources that the current policy requires. And I wanted to get ahead of it, I guess, and have you think about it. from that perspective.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's-
for sure.
that's all. All right. There are no other comments from staff, and we have no public here. I think we can move on to item number 4, update on library organizational structure. Daniel, I assume it's your.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick us off, actually.
Okay.
Did you? Okay, I'm doing it now. So this is one we've been working on for a long time now. Just to kind of jog your. All right, just to jog your memory, about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we came, well. Let me start with saying, so over the last year, we've had a lot of staff vacancies in the library. Currently, we have about a third of our positions are vacant. And it was kind of an odd timing when this all, it was kind of just coincidental, but it all happened right before as we were getting ready to close the downtown library. So it gave us an opportunity when we were running the pop-up. Well, one, we don't have space, and 2, we don't have a need for as many staff in our current configuration. So that gave us time and opportunity to really look at our organizational structure without the intense pressure to fill those vacancies very quickly. And it's very unusual to have that many vacancies at once. There's definitely a lot of negatives to it in terms of staff capacity, but again, it was kind of this interesting timing for us. But it also really gave us an opportunity to look at our organizational structure and to make potentially significant changes without impacting kind of our current staff as significantly. So about a year ago, I presented to the board about an operational assessment that we were going to conduct with Jane Light, who was the former director of Redwood City and San Jose Public Libraries. So we did that, we conducted that assessment. She did interviews with all of our staff. We had a number of staff meetings. We pulled data and information from other libraries and really identified kind of what are the key challenges that staff are experiencing. And identified opportunities for addressing those through kind of a rethought organizational structure. So through that operational assessment process, we developed kind of some high level goals for how we want our structure to work and kind of for any changes that we were going to make. The first goal is pretty critical, but basically supporting staff in delivering high quality programs and services. We want to make sure that they have the resources, the training, the support they need to deliver programs and services that are tailored to our community, that are responsive to community needs, and that really provide value, right? That's our whole goal. We also heard that there's some confusion around roles and expectations. I don't know if you all had a chance to look. I don't have it included here, but as an attachment to the staff report, we included kind of the previous organizational structure, and it's people were not clear on what their role in the organization was. I think we were organized into 3 buckets that were not particularly traditional for libraries, and I think our staff were a little confused on kind of where they sat in the organization. They also identified the need for more opportunities for growth and specialization. I think the number one thing we heard from staff is they really wanted to go back to having a children's, adults, and teens focus. That more traditional structure was something they felt was really important to being able to deliver high quality programs and services, to really valuing the expertise of library staff. And to making sure that, they were able to provide the high level of tailored service that, they wanted to. Another goal is to ensure adequate and well-trained staff for all these next three kind of go together, but ensure adequate and well-trained staff for all operations and service areas. Ensure managers have capacity for higher level strategy work and that we have sufficient supervisory support. I think our prior organizational structure, each supervisor was really responsible for a lot of staff. And that led to challenges. There wasn't enough ability to kind of provide the supervisory support that staff, particularly a large part-time sub workforce, needed. While at the same time, they were really pulled into some of the more nitty-gritty of the operations versus we didn't really have that kind of mid-manager level to perform some more of the strategy, the special project type of work. And then we wanted to create a scalable structure for future growth. I think we've got a big project on the horizon. I think there's still questions about what's going to happen in North Santa Fe, so we wanted a structure that could kind of scale depending on the future of the library. So those were kind of the goals that really drove the changes that we are making. I'm going to turn over to you now.
And then to kind of get to really accomplishing those goals, our structure is really split up into two service areas: public services and support services. Public services will be overseen by a supervising librarian, and will focus a lot on our public-facing library services. And within that kind of service area is where you're going to see a lot of the more specialized service for adult, teen, children. And within this area, though, we'll have three new classifications, which is a supervising senior librarian, who's going to provide that really front level supervisory support to our librarian team. And on our support services side, it's going to be overseen by a brand new position called the Library Services Supervisor. And this kind of service area focuses on a lot of what we kind of referring to the back of house service, a lot of our support, circulation, technical services, and our facilities. This service area supervises a pretty robust group of our temp staff, our library assistants, and we'll focus a lot on, as you can see on there, circulation, patron, account management. They'll contribute to a collection maintenance task, which is something that blends into what public services also does with more of the collection development side. And from kind of merging these two kind of service areas, right in the middle, it's patron engagement. A lot of our staff, although it's pretty specialized in each service area, it was with intention that we kind of want to retain a lot of the flexibility, so that staff can still continue to collaborate with other members of the team on things that are of interest to them. But public services will focus a lot on our programming efforts, our outreach efforts, while support services focus on a lot of like our operations and making sure that staff are trained on our policies and that we have a structure so that our staff can follow in terms of what our patron registration policies are, and those are pretty critical for the service desk and how we function on. And that's kind of what our service areas are going to have.
I think I'm just gonna jump in one thing, because it kind of touches on what you said. I think one of the reasons we had this structure to begin with was to get rid of a lot of silos and to kind of really encourage collaboration and that kind of like cross-functional collaborative culture. And I think that we went a little bit into one extreme, and so now we're kind of trying to find that middle ground where we don't want these silos, we want people, we're not a big enough team for someone to be like, no, I am a teen librarian, I cannot sit on the children's desk, like, that's just not gonna work in an organization of our size. And I think that's something we've really worked a lot on over the past years, and folks are more comfortable kind of going anywhere, but now we also need to recognize that those specializations are industry standard for a reason, and also important. So as we're trying to strike that balance where there's still that flexibility and that collaboration, people who work at Pickle Week can still work downtown when they're needed, or or regularly. I know staff like being able to work at different locations. But yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into what our new structure enables us to do, is really have clarity in the track of supervision. And it also just kind of enables, it just kind of unsuppresses kind of those interests that staff have in terms of what their expertise, where they're able to design programming and have kind of a clear objective. And they know who their supervisors are, who they report to, and there's just a clearer structure. It's flatter, you can tell. It spreads out the responsibility with the frontline supervisors. And it's just clearer on a day-to-day who does what. And I think the work on our part is knowing this structure is going to be putting practices into place that continues to nurture the collaborative kind of spirit that we're holding. Because every staff person mentions how much they like that right now they're working on different projects. They just like that more structured. And thank you. Next step is recruiting.
Yeah. So this was a very different version of this went to the city council for the mid-year budget that really focused on add this, convert this position to that position and convert this position to that position. Which was actually a little bit challenging for us to write because we weren't really looking at it as like, they weren't like equivalent, right? We were looking at it as a whole, how are we operating and what's the structure? But you may have seen there was an IJ article where it got mentioned, and it was probably not the narrative I would have gone with, and they also got a bunch of things wrong, but that's okay. One of us, just one or two.
It's the RJ.
Yes, just kind of off of that, and it's not necessarily just this, but yeah, like I read about that in the IJ. If it's possible, if something's going to the city council that could be like reported or anything like that, is it possible to get like an email heads up, as the library board, if it's not something that, I get that, we only meet once monthly and it's hard.
Yeah, we absolutely can let you know ahead of time. I think I was, to be honest, quite surprised that it was picked up, because it was really part of this, it was part of the mid-year budget. Typically, personnel items don't get reported on, so.
No, and I get that
yeah.
it's like, and like you said, it's not the narrative you wanted, but even if it's something that's just going to the city council, as a library board member, we could go and still provide public comment, or, be there if we want, or at least just have a heads up. So I just kind of generally would appreciate that. And then my second question is, when you guys developed the plan, did Jane potentially speak with any like former staff about issues they had? Because I know this was sort of also like a retention issue, so I wonder if she spoke to anyone or tried to, at least. I don't think.
I don't believe she did. No, we focused on current staff. We did start this process before, so I spoke with former staff like before they left. And I think this was in alignment with what I don't think I've heard anything from any staff that doesn't kind of align with this general direction.
Nice. Okay.
So are you able to get all 30% hired? I mean, is that a goal or you're gonna still have to cut back or the budget? Okay.
No, there was a little bit, there was a little bit of. Again, it wasn't quite 1-for-1, so like some of our library assistants that are currently 0.5, we moved them up to 0.64. We had a point, though, another thing we didn't mention was we had a 0.7 program coordinator that was a recreation staff that we are changing, and they were focused on marketing, but just for recreation. We're moving them to a full-time person that will be doing marketing for the whole department, so that's gonna be really, really great.
Yeah.
Cause that was kind of just something that had become like, whoever had the most skill in it was like a secondary duty for whichever library staff felt like they wanted to take it on.
Mhm.
So it'll be nice to have that there, so. Yes, so it kind of wasn't like, yeah, again, it wasn't, we didn't really do a 1-for-1.
Uh-huh.
But I think, I don't see any issue with us fully getting staff. We should have. We just had a meeting with HR today. They're shooting to get the library services supervisor and supervising librarian recruitments out next week.
So you're kind of missing some of the top.
Mostly the
Positions?
top position is what we're seeing right now, yeah.
So the managers will go out for recruitment first. Next week, and then we'll move down to senior librarians, and in hopes that that'll create some promotion.
Mhm.
Can you see the slide before?
Where are you?
No,
Where are you? Daniel?
That one.
He's the assistant director.
Okay, and then you're the.
And I'm not on this chart.
She's so tough if you don't know.
Yeah, so the supervising librarian, the library services supervisor, there's 3 senior librarians, the library aides. The full-time library assistant, those are the current vacancies. So it's a lot at the top right now, and we have staff that are in interim kind of supervisory positions.
those positions have to be certain degree requirement or experience or?
There's experience required, yeah. Yeah, we many years ago moved away from requiring the MLIS, but it is for the librarian classifications, it's preferred. And then the duties and abilities and knowledge and skills required for the position do require either an MLIS and experience or significantly more experience in working in libraries. These are pretty high level positions for us.
And I would just question about the collection development. I just.
Buying books.
Buying books, curating a lot of our collections.
It's just based on the request.
No.
No.
A lot goes into it. I mean, there's standing orders, there's high demand collection, there's local collections.
Okay.
And then those are broken down by genre.
Mhm.
So our librarians go through a lot of book reviews and
New York Times.
New York Times.
It's gonna be on Netflix, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of anticipating what's gonna be popular based on current trends.
Politics, I mean.
If there's book to film, if there's a book to film title, that spikes demand, so then you start to purchase that way. We purchase books for book clubs and picture books I think it's one of the things that we probably buy everything because it goes out a lot. Alejandra and our Pickle team just went to a book fair in Redwood City to purchase Spanish language materials, which a lot of vendors go and sell direct. Hands on it, take a look at it, and it's books that you can find from our regular vendors. So there's different routes to how we develop our specific collections.
The other part of collection development is weeding.
Oh, yeah.
So which which books get taken out of the collection, because we can't, if we buy, we've got to take out, because we don't have infinite space.
And it's kind of that collection management, kind of in the middle of the Venn diagram where collection maintenance kind of meet. And both kind of service areas help out with that.
Yeah, some of the weeding is done by, you run a report on, books that haven't been checked out in a certain amount of time, and then, so then that part is kind of the support services, they can run those lists and pull them off, and then the librarians review, like, is there any reason we might want to keep this? Is there a local interest or, some uniqueness about the book that we might want to keep it in the collection, even though it hasn't gone out, things like that.
Do you donate those to another school or library or?
I mean, typically, if we are weeding it out of our collection, not a lot of other people would want it, but we do.
There's different things that happen depending on the condition of the book. If some of them are kind of coming from like Baker and Taylor, which is one of our vendors, some of those we could send back and
The credit.
give credit to purchase other ones. Some of them are recycled, mostly are paperbacks that are just pretty worn out. But there's different ways of deselecting.
Kind of hurts.
More librarians feel the same way.
You have to throw a book away.
Yeah, they do go through a lot of effort to try and find good homes for that. We aren't always successful.
I think you've already answered this question, but let me just be clear that, I read the IJ article as well, and I was surprised that there was so much interest in all these technical things about which grade or which level a library was rejiggering. But let me make sure I understand the organizational chart that you presented then, the mid-year budget review by the city. Their budget is going to allow you to fully fill those positions.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like, but I just wanted to.
yeah, I think also because, so it was in that staff report, there were eight pages of personnel changes. Like one of those pages was the library, we were the first page, so I think that's why we got. We were, and it's a little bit more, has probably more general interest than like our, I don't know, community development or other departments.
It's a Measure B is the one.
Measure D?
2018,
What?
2018 it passed?
Yep,
That's
it's
the third.
expiring next year.
Yeah, that's the service of the, so it's a personal hiring is from that.
It's a split. Our budget is split between general fund and Measure D. About a third is Measure D and 2/3 is general fund. Most of these positions are higher level and most of the higher level positions are general fund. Just kind of coincidental, but yeah, so that is something we're gonna look at as we're budgeting for next year is where are the vacancies.
All the steps based on the Measure D.
No, but we're using a lot more extra hire temp staff, so our budget there is higher and. Yeah. We're using some of the salary savings to help support the pop-up. Unforeseen expenses.
Are there any talk of like having dedicated like children's room librarians?
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, that's so, the ones in the middle. There's three, so there would be, I mean, we will have three. One senior librarian over adult and teen, two dedicated, and so, they will really be dedicated, probably mostly to adult, really. And then two dedicated adult librarians and one dedicated teen librarian. And then we'll have the senior librarian over children's, a dedicated children's librarian, and a dedicated children's senior library assistant. And then the branches, we also have kind of dedicated staff.
It'd be nice to, I mean, I probably got spoiled in a way that long time ago, we had like just 2 or 3 dedicated children librarians, they're my kids, and then later I start seeing, I don't know what year, like 2018, 19, starting to see they are upstairs, downstairs, And then I'm totally fine because familiar faces, so we always like that. And but my experience was all the staff was capable of doing so many different things. So I never actually thought about that. Maybe they are not so.
No, and I think
Yeah,
that
if
there's,
they're learning
there's
fast or-
what the kind of your day-to-day patron might see, but then how staff feel about the service they're delivering. And maybe some of those more complex requests and,
Yeah. Everybody was so always, we were there.
oh, I mean, our staff's wonderful and they're all super capable
Capable.
and, you know, welcoming and
Mhm.
customer service, whether you're in the children's or the adults, is kind of very similar. Well,
It seems like the pop-up is more homogeneous, right? Because it's kind of small.
Yeah,
Although I did see some activity going with, somebody was reading a book and people had their little babies and kids, but it's just one big open grand room in a way.
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's big, because I think the ceilings are higher or
yeah,
something.
people enjoy that.
And
So their story time and the sound carries it.
I consider the library as no longer quiet place to
Right.
read. It's more communal
Mhm.
gathering place for everyone. Thank you.
There are no other comments from the board. I thank you for that update. It sounds like you have the right organizational structure going ahead and the city is funding that structure, so that is great news. On to item then number, well, actually, there's no public here, so we have no public comment on this item. So on to item number 5, staff liaison report.
You wanna go first or I'm gonna go first? Okay. So the Carnegie remodel's coming along. Just did a walkthrough today. All the walls are painted. It looks really different in there. I think it's gonna be a really nice little refresh for the building. Yeah, so we're on track for construction to end of June, fingers crossed. I mean, we're still. With that building, you never know. We're on track for that to be done end of June for us to move back in and hopefully reopen middle of July. We're looking at potentially doing some sort of fun reopening event that's aligned with the cities. This is the city's 150th. So the fire PD is gonna be doing some sort of open house, so we're gonna make a little block party or something. So more to come on that. Related to this, a couple council items that are going forward. We will be doing furniture and mobile shelving purchases, which are substantial enough that they have to be approved by city council. We also are going to be going to council to increase the architect and general contractor agreement. We're close to being within budget, but there's just a lot of unforeseen things that have popped up as we've been going along that have required additional costs. But I think overall, given the age of the building and the project size, I'm happy with where we're at. Pickleweed Library, so we are looking at a middle of August closure for that library. The plans have been submitted to community development for permits. So that's moving forward. We'll probably be going out to bid for the general contractor in April. And hopefully to award that contract in middle of July to start in middle of August. So also very exciting. We've done, as you were asking about, we can kind of measure P, we're starting to think about, we're more than starting to think about that as well, but we have done a number of kind of library and community center tours now. We went to South San Francisco, to Palo Alto's Mitchell Library. Menlo Park has a new library and community center at their Bellhaven campus. That one was paid for by Meta, which is nice. They had its drawbacks, as we learned.
Really?
They didn't really have a lot to say in the design. So that was, I think, created some challenges. But it's I mean, overall, it's a beautiful facility and I think a big improvement from what was there before. We also stopped at the Burlingame Community Center, which Daniel said is the first.
Yeah.
Community center he's been to that feels like a library, because it's just very welcoming and open and a lot of places for people to sit and gather and just hang out. So those were all very inspirational. I think one of the things we immediately learned about was like some kind of just their planning process. So that we took a lot of notes and we'll hopefully have something to report out on in maybe like May. And I believe you all will be receiving similar timeline, an invitation to the foundation's annual dinner. If you haven't already, which is gonna be May 15th.
And we didn't go last year, or did they just?
They didn't have one last year because they were in the middle of their campaign. I think the last one they had was maybe 2 or even 3 years
A
ago.
little luncheon.
Yeah,
Thing,
they had
donut.
luncheon,
Yeah,
and then, so it's been a while since they've had a dinner.
okay.
Yeah.
And then just to add a little bit onto the downtown, we've been taking staff on tours of the site.
Hmm.
And it's been great to kind of see them kind of see the space differently. For me, it's like I saw it for like a month and a half, 2 months, and then now it's like different. But for a lot of our staff who've been there a long time has been a kind of neat experience to see them see the transformation.
Good.
And it's been positive from the sites visits that I've gone with them, so it's been pretty nice. Nice to see.
Great.
One other thing, kind of library related is that next Monday city council meeting, we'll be presenting the Terra Linda Parking Community Center Enhancement Plan, kind of the draft, just like the draft concept for council review, and a second story library is kind of considered as an optional potential element of that project, so. Yeah, the planning has really focused on the park and community center, but through the community engagement process, the library was identified as something the community would be interested in. Kind of, depending on
And
future.
the second story would be over, kind of where the arts.
So the proposed plan demos the existing building and kind of reorients it on the site and rebuilds it. So it's on the it's on the website. Yeah, you can see kind of how it's trying, one of the goals is to open the site, so there is more of an entry between Delgado and the park.
Right.
So it's not just kind of hidden behind the building.
Yeah, it's kind of, that basketball court is just kind of,
Right.
Yeah,
it's not.
no,
Right, it's not a pretty building.
no.
Huh.
So, yeah, so that's all
Yeah.
part of it.
Clay's studio stays.
I mean, ceramics will be a critical part of the new facility. We have heard loud and clear from that community. We recognize the value. It's a really important program that we provide there. Super robust. It will be better. It will be better than it is now.
Who's gonna make me happy?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's pretend if they did have a second level library there. What would happen, and I know that whole redevelopment at Terra Linda, which probably that library, that little spin-off at Terra Linda will not be there if they do that whole big, right? So then this would potentially serve that part of that community. Is that what I'm hearing?
The Northgate Library will be closing when that building is demolished.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I don't know what that time is.
I don't either. I am not, I've heard by the end of the year, but I don't,
It might be still.
but nobody's actually told us. So. There is a library contemplated for the new development, kind of like they're building a space that could be a library. But that would be, I think my understanding is they would offer like a 10-year lease. So
Okay.
we'll, yeah,
But you own this property, the other
Yeah.
property would be yours, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it'd be bigger and we could design it as we wanted it. So.
Metta's not gonna tell you how to design it.
One thing that just came up today is we're partnering with the SF Giants
Oh,
to, they're doing public library night on April 7th. For their game on April 7th, and they're providing libraries with discounted tickets for that date. I think it's like 20-30% off, and then $5 from each ticket sale goes to a library fund.
very cool. That's
I'm
cool.
talking with them to kind of increase the number of games. So,
Already viewing.
yeah, it's usually just that day, but I'm talking to them about including a summer and a fall time game. Just to give our patrons more options and kind of increase in engagement there.
Nice. It's really nice.
So we'll share all the details
Yeah.
once we get all the links.
We should plan to go April 7th.
Right,
It's a Monday and during spring break.
it's a. Or
I
hopefully.
wonder why they didn't have gone that day.
Yeah.
Not going, they're not doing Saturday against the Dodgers.
No, probably not.
Mhm.
No,
Oh,
it's been getting lots of email from school. Announcement of my cars.
My cards.
It's how you can buy your card.
Yeah, there was a lot of engagement in November and December with the library card project.
Yeah. It's
And
here. It's
I think
here.
that, I think the timing was correct this year. And I think the level of engagement and collaboration between the school librarians and our librarians and Marin County Free Libraries librarians was significant this year, and it has made a difference. So we're collaborating with the schools now to really, once we launch our summer reading program, to really make sure that our materials get out to them.
Daniel, I'd like to get it on the record that, we talked earlier about your
That's right.
trip to San Diego, and that whole program sounds
Right,
fascinating.
so Alejandra and Lee are presenting on their book clubs, their bilingual book clubs at Creando Enlaces, which is a conference held every year in San Diego, one day in San Diego, one day is in Tijuana. And this year the theme is focusing on bilingual services, embracing duality. And we're excited. We haven't presented in a while, and staff is eager to kind of get out there and tell people what they're doing, and we're supporting that.
And I think they will be presenting to the board, the presentation.
Yeah, we are excited about kind of briefing you on what they presented on and how it went. So we'll add that.
It should be on Marina J.
Maybe, they do occasionally listen to these meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll let everyone know how that goes and have them come over here and present.
And I also just wanna emphasize how much work the team's been putting into building up our programming lately. I don't know how many of you peruse through or check it out every month, but it's really, there's a lot of new programming coming, and the team's really been working very hard on that. So I think at some point, we're gonna present on it.
I think it's next meeting where we'll kind of highlight.
Yeah,
all the
unless I know we had to bump the.
Oh, that's right.
analysis, so we don't wanna give too big of a meeting today also.
Yeah, no, but it does look like a busy schedule, lots of neat
It
things
is.
going on, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else from staff? Any other questions from the board? All right. With that, again, there's no public here, so we'll move on to item number 6, commissioner reports. Anybody want to talk about conferences or seminars that they attended? All right. Hearing none, that looks like the end of our agenda for this meeting. If no one else has anything, I will adjourn the meeting, and it is 57.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you,
job.
Ginger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Catherine, what I saw at
Well,